What's up, cool cats? We are going to talk about progressive overload today because it's important and everybody should be doing it, and I just want to talk about it. Let's just dive in. I have notes because you know your girl rambles. Basically what it is, or maybe we should backtrack a little bit and talk about why you should be progressively overloading. You can progressive overload, if you think about it, everything and anything. When you are learning something new, what do you have to do? You have to continue to just learn more and dig deeper, and then you end up learning more, right? With running, to get better at running, you have to run longer or try to run faster in this distance or whatever. When you're doing yoga, you progress everything. To get better at anything, you need to progressively overload. But we're going to specifically talk about strength training. But I want you to think of progressive overload in everything. You progressively overload everything in your life to get better at it, right? So we're going to focus on strength training though. So why, or how it kind of happens. So basically when we're exercising, we're putting a stress on our body, and then you go through a recovery phase. If you properly recover, which everybody should be doing, and that's a little piece I'll add to the end of it just to throw it in, but that's not what this is about. So if you are properly recovering, then your body will then adapt, and in the adaptation is when growth happens. Your muscles come back stronger, faster, leaner, whatever the case may be, okay? And then you start that process again. So then you have to put the stress on your body, but you can't put the same stress on your body that you already did because your body has already adapted to that. So you have to put additional stress on your body for your body to go through that same process again, right? Right, okay. And I'm talking like this because I need to keep myself in order because I just go everywhere, okay? So that process happens, and that process is where progressive overload happens, or where you input it, or whatever. So ways that you can progressively overload. So yes, weights, obviously, but that's not the only way. So I don't want you to think of progressive overload as just adding more weight. That's not really the only way. So first and foremost, you need to be focusing on the main movement. So you need to be focusing on, your hip hinge, your knee bends, like squat, deadlift, those movements, and then trying to progressively get better at those movements. Because if you're just all over the place and you're doing like this week, and you're doing this the next week, and then you're doing this, and then you're doing that, and then you're just kind of all over the place, you don't even know how to progressively overload that because you're doing so many different movements. So it's not as efficient as if you just do the same ones over and over again, right? So we're just gonna use the bench press, okay? So, or a deadlift. We'll just use a deadlift, okay? So my hair is dripping on me, so I moved it to the back. So in a deadlift, let's just say you start with 100 pounds on the bar, right? So first week you do 100 pounds. And if we're talking about building strength, we need to be in that like 6 to 10, maybe 12 rep range, maybe 12. But really like 6 to 8, 10 rep range, right? So we start with 100 pounds. The first week we can do 6 reps. Awesome. The next week we can do 7 reps. Awesome. That's progressive overload. The next week you can do 7 again. And then the next week after that you can do 8. Perfect. And then the next week after that you can do 8. And then you can do 9. And then you can do 10. Cool. And 8 weeks have gone by, but you're doing the same thing. You're doing the same movement. You're using that weight. You're trying to get your reps, heavier reps. That's progressive overload. You're putting more stress on your body. Okay, so then what you do, once you get to 10, then you can start over. So then you can put 110 pounds on the bar, and then you might start over. You might get 6, or you might, the first time you do it, you might get 7, you might get 8, whatever. So you just do it like that, and so on and so on and so on until you die. So that's progressive overload. So obviously there's going to be a number. You can't just progress linearly forever, there's going to be things that come up in your life that's going to maybe derail your training or whatever, and then you might have to start over, or there's different seasons of life, and it might not be as important to you to be as strong as possible. You might not have as much time to do that. So you'll go back and forth with this. If everyone linearly progressed, you'd be deadlifting 1,000 pounds, by the time you're 40. Like, that doesn't make any sense. So it's not going to completely be linear, but that's where other things come into play. So that's where you can do like 3-second eccentric deadlift or whatever, or that's progressive overload still. A single leg deadlift, that's changing the stimulus, that's putting the stress on one leg, that's progressive overload. There's just so many different ways that you can do it, focusing on form. So once you get to 10 reps, if your form isn't top notch, then I suggest before moving on to heavier weight, or while you're moving on to heavier weight, it's fine. You can do both of them together. You just practice that form, and that form, once that form is fire at 10, then you can safely move up and start doing 6 reps and 7, and then you just start that process over and over again. But it is essential that you do that process over and over, and you progressively overload your body some way, some form, every single week. So whether it's getting the form a little bit tighter, getting one extra rep in that week, advancing the movement some type of way, increasing the weight by 5 pounds. There's so many ways, doing different, like doing it in a static hold, doing it in a 3-second, like I said, eccentric phase, whatever you want to do. There's just so many ways that you can do it. You can add a band, you can whatever, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many ways that you can do it, but you have to be progressively overloading yourself every single week in some way, some shape or form, whatever that phrase is, for this process to take place. And then you adapt, where you recover, right? You put the stress, you recover, you adapt, the process starts over. But your body needs to adapt to more stimulus each time for it to grow back stronger or build back stronger, faster, leaner, all of these things. Okay? So, and then I just really want to emphasize that you have a better chance of properly, progressively overloading if you stick with the same movements. So there are tons of different ways that you can essentially be doing the same movements. So, you can do a barbell deadlift and you can do a dumbbell deadlift, right? Now, you're going to be able to lift more weight with a barbell. It just is the way it is, because eventually with the dumbbell, your grip is just going to give out. Your grip is going to give out sooner than your legs might give out. And so with a barbell, it allows you to add more load. So that's really the benefit of using that, but you can do them both, and you can progressively overload them both and build strength with both. So there's just so many different ways to do it, but your best way of adapting and progressively overloading is if you stick with the same numbers week after week, and write your numbers down. Track it however you need to track it, so that way you know. It's so easy to go in the gym and be like, I think I did 8 reps of 20. Like, how are you going to remember that with everything else life has going on, So it's just so much easier. Write everything down. And if you stick with that for 4, 6, 8 weeks, I'm talking about just write down some movements, stick with them, and progressively overload for them for 6 to 8 whatever weeks, it's going to work. Any program that you do, any good program that you do, or even half decent, if you're progressively overloading it, and especially if you're a beginner to an intermediate, you're gonna advance. You just have to stick to those principles. Okay, so I do want to touch on proper recovery quickly, because that's not what really this is about, but it's such an important part of progressive overload that I think we should talk about it. So proper recovery means rest, it means hydration, it means nutrition. Like, you cannot, you can, there's only so far you can go though. You cannot run on 4 hours of sleep and try to train 5, 6, 7 days a week. That's, first of all, it's unnecessary, Realistically, you can train, if you're a beginner, you can train 3 times a week and see amazing results. If you're more in that intermediate advanced, I suggest maybe 4 times a week. If you're really into if you're bodybuilding, I guess, you're working specific, arms today, then you could get away with training 5 days a week, but it's unnecessary, but to each their own. 4 days I think is the best. It gives you the best rest. You get 3 days of rest. You can split your workouts up like that, and you get so much rest. Like, I like to do Monday, Tuesday. By Wednesday, I've already hit lower and upper body, so Wednesday I want to rest everything. Thursday, I start over with legs, so that way my upper body gets an extra day, and then Friday, I'll either do total body, which is what I'm doing right now because I'm doing a glute program, but normally I would do Friday or Saturday, I would do an upper body day. So I'm trying to fit as much rest days in as possible, and of course I have to work that around, my son, so whatever, some days it'll fall on Friday or Saturday or Sunday or whatever day it falls on, but essentially I always try to take a day in the middle of the week to break that up. The more rest you get, the more it's going to benefit you, because like we talked about, the cycle, how it works, stress, Recovery has to happen for you to adapt. You can't get to the adaptation phase without recovery. And if you're skipping recovery week after week after week, yeah, you'll see, especially if you're a beginner, yeah, you'll probably see some results, minimal, but to see like real results and really make the most out of your efforts, you need to focus on that recovery phase. More is not better. You need to allow your muscles to recover, because that is when change happens. And I just can't stress that enough, but I'm gonna stop rambling. So yeah, make sure you're hitting your protein, make sure you're eating enough. You can't expect your body to run off, I mean, depending on how your height and everything. I mean, some people do need 1,200 calories, if you're like 5 foot, 110 pounds, but like, your body can't run off 1,000 calories a day, and you're working out for an hour and you're strength training and then you're doing extra cardio and you're sleeping for 5 hours. Your body just cannot do that. It's not sustainable and it's not fun. Like, why? Don't do that to yourself, please. Okay, that's all I wanted to talk about. I hope it made sense, that I didn't ramble too much. I really tried to just explain what progressive overload was, and I hope that I did that and you got something from this. If you have any questions, just comment, or you can always email me, message my website, whatever you need to do to get a hold of me. I'm happy to help, and let me know what you want to know next. Okay, ciao.